The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have lost another key player for the rest of the regular season, and now they're dealing with some COVID outfall. What are the changes going to be to the COVID protocol across the NFL, and how fast can they get some of these guys back? That and more voicemails coming up on this episode of Locked On Bucs. Let's dive in.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. I am James Yarko, usually joined by David Harrison. He is still out, but he will be back this week. I promise he's going to be back. He's coming. I talked to him today. He'll be here. You can check out everything David and I are doing over at BucsNation.com. Make sure you follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarko_Bucs, at DHarrison82, and at Bucs_Nation. As I've done so often over the course of the last week and a half, maybe even all the way back to 2 weeks. I can't remember now because it seems like every day we're going to kick things off with some bad news. And that is outside linebacker Shaquil Barrett has a sprained ACL and MCL. It's not severe, but it's enough that it is going to take him out for the remainder of the regular season, joining the likes of Leonard Fournette, Giovanni Bernard, Chris Godwin. I mean, obviously, Chris Godwin's done even into the playoffs, but you have Fournette out for the rest of the regular season. You have Lavonte David out for the rest of the regular season. You have Giovanni Bernard, who's eligible to come off IR after this week. It's a lot. The Bucs are dealing with a lot. And of course, you've also missed Mike Evans, who's out with a hamstring injury. We're going to get to him in just a moment. But you take a look at the Shaq Barrett situation. This was a defense that was already without Jason Pierre-Paul against the Carolina Panthers. He's been dealing with a litany of injuries all season long. So now you lose your other starting pass rusher off the edge in Shaq Barrett. Does Jason Pierre-Paul come back before the end of the regular season? I'm not sure. I honestly don't know if I would bring him back before the end of the regular season. Let him rest up for a few more weeks, try to get as healthy as he can for the playoff push. But now you're in a situation where Joe Tryon-Shoyinka stepped in, played extremely well in the absence of Jason Pierre-Paul. He was a great compliment to Shaquil Barrett and was still effective after Shaq Barrett had left the game. You see every time that JTS is on the field why he was a first-round draft pick and why the Buccaneers were so excited to get him. He gets better each and every week, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that there hasn't been any pressure on him. He's been a role player, a rotational player. He's stepped in and filled in admirably when these guys have had injuries. You go back to the beginning of the season when Jason Pierre-Paul was out with that shoulder injury. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka was able to step in, but he wasn't nearly as effective as he's been over the course of the last month and a half. So you're going to get some production out of him. The question is, who's going to complement him on the other side? Is it going to be Anthony Nelson, who had a sack against the Carolina Panthers? Is it going to be a platoon of guys? Are they going to go out and sign someone if Shaq Barrett is really going to miss the last 2 weeks of the regular season, as well as if JPP is going to be shelved for the remaining 2 games before the playoffs begin? So a lot of working parts, a lot of moving pieces, but you're confident in Tryon-Shoyinka's ability to be able to get after a quarterback, especially going up against the New York Jets and the Carolina Panthers as the final 2 games. But you continue to see Tryon-Shoyinka really become a weapon off the edge for the Buccaneers. His ability to spin inside, his ability to beat offensive linemen and create pressure, get his hands on the quarterback, get the quarterback off of his spot, force bad throws. It's all there. And he's still a rookie. He's just learning from 2 of the best in the NFL in JPP and Barrett. So he's been able to kind of speed up his process while still being able to sit back and learn and then take advantage of the opportunities that he's been on the field. Some other news, of course, is that Mike Evans was placed on the reserve COVID list on Monday after The Carolina Panthers placed quite a few players on the reserve COVID list. Obviously, Mike Evans wasn't interacting with any of those guys, but Brian Burns, Shaq Thompson of the Carolina Panthers tested positive. They've been placed on the reserve COVID list. So you're going to have to keep an eye on some of these Buccaneers because they will have been close contacts, obviously, with players out there that have tested positive on Monday, tackling these Buccaneers players, just the day before. But Buccaneers wide receiver coach Kevin Carver tested positive. So now you wonder, is there going to be more fallout with close contacts from him? You're already thin at wide receiver. Antonio Brown just came back. Brashad Perryman just came off the reserve COVID list. So that's good news. But is it going to affect Scotty Miller? Is it going to affect Tyler Johnson? Is it going to affect, any of these other guys that were Cyril Grayson? Is it going to affect these guys that were potentially close contacts with Kevin Carver? Are they going to test positive? And the Bucs are going to be really, really shorthanded at the wide receiver position this Sunday against the Jets. One thing to keep an eye on, though, is a change in protocol. I saw Greg Allman of The Athletic tweeted out that now you only need one negative test instead of negative tests on consecutive days. And news beyond just the realm of sports, but it certainly has the potential to affect the realm of sports, is that the CDC has changed the isolation period for positive tests from 10 days to 5. So is the NFL going to adopt that change? You're seeing the Omicron variant run rampant through the National Hockey League as well. A lot of our listeners and viewers are also Tampa Bay Lightning fans, and you've seen Andre Vasilevsky and Anthony Cirelli and Sergey and Brian Elliott all test positive. They're in the COVID protocol as asymptomatic. Head coach John Cooper tested positive. You're seeing it, games in the NHL be delayed and postponed and canceled because so many players are testing positive right now with this Omicron variant. Not as severe, just more contagious. So it's something that you're kind of having to adjust on the fly, much like we saw when all of this started. Gosh, it's been 2 years now. 2 years ago, when all of this started, you've seen leagues and businesses and all kinds of places have to adjust on the fly as more information comes out and things of that nature. So Mike Evans may not have even been able to play on Sunday because of that hamstring issue. We're not sure. Might have been looking to come back in week 18 against the Carolina Panthers at home. He's, I believe, 101 yards away from 1,000 yards on the season. He's going to want to try to get that 1,000-yard mark. So he probably would have, if he was able to go, he would have gone and try to split that between two games. But no question that he would be able to accomplish that against the Panthers by himself. Antonio Brown literally just had 101 yards against the Carolina Panthers. So things to keep an eye on with the positive test with the Panthers, the positive test with wide receivers coach Kevin Carver, now Mike Evans. You're going to want to keep an eye on that because there could be more and more players that end up testing positive because of the close contacts. But it is what it is. We just got to keep riding through and honestly, with the players being vaccinated, they should be. Now the NFL is requiring boosters for players and tier 1, tier 2 media. So again, it's a constant evolving news cycle when it comes to this new variant that is again far more contagious, but not quite as severe. Coming up in just a few minutes, we are going to get to a few more of your voicemails, answer a couple more questions, and later on, I'm going to give you my big takeaway for the week. Segment 2 here of the Locked On Bucs podcast, and thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen every day. But make sure you check out the Ultimate College Football Playoff Preview 2021. Local experts, betting advice, and draft analysis. The most comprehensive college football playoff preview begins this Friday. You are not going to want to miss that, just like we didn't want to miss a phone call from our next caller. We're going to dive in, like I said, to a few more voicemails. We had to hear from this guy. Without further ado, Let's hear from Mad Dog.
Hey, what's up, gents? Happy New Year. Hope the holidays were you and your families. This is Mad Dog from St. Creaturesburg, Florida, calling today from Miami. My comment is that, BA has harped on all year the lack of focus. And in the Saints game, it came to bite them in the butt. Fortunately for Buccaneer fans, the defense is starting to show that eye of the tiger that they had last year during the Super Bowl run. However, the offense, because of injuries, is still trying to find its footing. Brady was pedestrian by Brady standards against Carolina. My question to you is, what do you think the issue is with the connection between Gronk and Brady with Evans and Godwin out? There's obviously still a connection with AB, but it's last few games, Gronk hasn't been there. Do you think it's something that other teams are doing to take away Gronk, or do you think there is an injury issue? I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Other than that, we're South Division champions, baby. Go Bucks. Fire the cannons. Have a great day. God bless you all.
Mad Dog, thank you very much for the call. Look, the Brady Gronk connection, I had talked about yesterday. I didn't have a lot of concerns with the offense, and I still don't. We gotta get some of these injured players back, Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, and it's certainly going to help matters quite a bit. I am not in the slightest bit concerned with the Brady Gronk connection. Now, you go back to the Saints game. Brady was looking for Gronk a lot, and Gronk was well covered. There was a lot of contact in that game. The referees were letting a lot go on both sides. I'm not going to sit here and, I don't think the refs were nearly as bad in the second game as they were in the first one. Gronk did ultimately draw a flag at one point in that game. And if I remember correctly, it's been a while. And obviously last week was insanely hectic for many of us. I do believe the Bucs ended up turning the ball over after Gronk got the pass interference call. But you take a look at yesterday, the Carolina Panthers came in with the defensive game plan of saying, look, they're getting Antonio Brown back, but he's been out for 10 weeks. So they have Cyril Grayson, Scotty Miller, like, who do they have? We are not going to let Rob Gronkowski be the one to beat us. Brady is going to have to do it without Evans, without Godwin, without Fournette. He's not going to do it by throwing to Gronk the entire day. It's just not going to happen. And they stuck exactly with that. You go back and you watch that touchdown catch by Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate didn't have a Carolina defender within a 5-yard radius of him because Gronk was triple teamed. The player that was on Brate, and maybe that was some miscommunication on the Panthers' part because the defender that was lined up and started to move with Brate broke off and goes with Gronk instead, becoming the third player to cover Gronk in the end zone. But you go back and you watch all of these plays where Brady was obviously looking for Gronk and didn't pull the trigger because he was double covered the whole time. His one reception happened because Stephon Gilmore got injured on the play and fell down. That's the only reason Gronk even got the one catch for 23 yards was because the guy who was draped all over him ended up getting a groin injury and fell to the turf. So we know that Tom Brady is the kind of quarterback that is always going to take what the defense gives him. And if he's going to, if it's going to be a death from a million paper cuts for your defense, Brady is glad to administer all of those paper cuts. 2 yards, 3 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 9 yards, 8 yards, all the way down the field. Has no problem doing that. Now, of course, BA likes to open it up and get downfield. Byron Leftwich likes to open it up, take the shots downfield. Brady enjoys opening it up and taking the shots down the field. But if they're not there and you don't have the personnel on the field to be able to accomplish that, then you're not going to do it. And you're going to chip away and you're going to dink and dunk your way all the way down the field because eventually the field is going to run out. You are either going to wind up in the end zone, or as we saw many, many times on Sunday, they just didn't have the red zone offense clicking with all of their weapons being out and so much of the defensive focus on Rob Gronkowski that they were settling for field goals. But they still ended up coming away with a 26-point win, still scored over 30 points, and they did it by getting 2 touchdowns. Is that right? Was it just 2 touchdowns? Goodness, I can't even remember. My brain is fried. So it was just chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away. It was 3 touchdowns. I forgot about Ronald Jones. My apologies, Rojo. So no concerns. No concerns at all over the Brady Gronk connection. And you're going to see that open up a little bit more when Mike Evans makes his return. Then you're going to see it open up a little bit more when Leonard Fournette makes his return. Now, if we see a game this Sunday where Le'Veon Bell is a little bit more involved, a little bit more comfortable and familiar with the playbook, get some opportunities to be out there on third downs, be a pass catching back, and he starts making some plays to the point that the Jets defense are like, okay, we now have to respect when number 6 is on the field. We have to have somebody over there covering him. You might start to see some one-on-one coverage, but for Gronk, open up on those third downs, up the seam, things like that. And of course, Brady is going to take advantage of that every single time. But what defensive coordinators are doing right now is saying, prove to me that you trust Cyril Grayson. Prove to me that you trust Justin Watson and Tyler Johnson and even OJ Howard, who has done next to nothing this year. Prove to us that you trust these guys to throw them the ball, because until you do, you are not going to get any opportunity to throw the ball to your BFF and your number 1 target over the course of your career. So don't worry about it, Mad Dog. It's all good. Things are going to begin to open back up as the Bucs continue to get some of these weapons back. We're going to hit one more voicemail before the break. Let's hear from our good buddy, Leighton.
Hey, guys. Leighton in Tampa. I know it's been a while. Just been taking in the season and gone with the ups and downs of our injuries and some of the games being played. Just wanted to call on the Monday, Victory Monday, and give a shout out to our great team win, especially in the absence of some key players. This is what you hope for in December when things go wrong or adversity happens, that other players step up. And of course, we got that with Keyshawn Vaughn, Phil Grayson, and just the way the O-line has continued to play all year. And so just excited for the division win. And now just hopefully we can win out and maybe get a loss to move up to that 3 or 2 seed. So from the other teams. So as always, go Bucks. Hope you guys are having a great holiday season, and talk to you guys later.
BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the college bowl season and the NFL playoffs. BetOnline remains your number 1 spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, to receive your bonus. Again, promo code Locked On for a 50% welcome bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Don't wait. Take advantage of all the new and amazing offers available. BetOnline, where the game starts. Wrapping things up here on a Tuesday edition of the Locked On Bucks podcast. James Yarko on Twitter at JYarko_Bucks. You can follow my co-host David Harrison at DHarrison82. We are going to hit one more voicemail before we move on to my takeaway for the week. Let's go ahead and hear from JT in Texas.
I called in crying last week. I'm calling in excited this week. This is JT from Texas. The defense is coming on at the right time. At least that defensive line is. I'm hoping that gets us into the playoffs, deep into the playoffs, at least the Super Bowl, hopefully. That's what did it last year was our defensive line. I'd like to see Mike Evans come back at least in one or two games. That way he can get his 1,000 yards. We'll see how that goes. Just happy for the win. Happy to see everything come together, even with not having all the pieces we want to have right now. Once we get everybody back, or a lot of them back healthy, make a good playoff run, I'll be happy about it. Something I didn't say last week that I should have. I want to tell y'all Merry Christmas. Hope y'all had a good one. And if I don't talk to you again, Happy New Year.
JT, thank you so much for the call and the well wishes. It was a great Christmas with my family. Had a great time, even with the in-laws. How often does that happen? No, actually, my in-laws are pretty cool. I always have a great time hanging out over there. But yes, a merry belated Christmas to you, and I hope you and your family have a wonderful New Year if we don't hear from you beforehand. But it's time to get to my takeaway for the week. Normally, David and I each give our takeaway. Just giving mine this week. That's how we were able to squeeze in a few more of these voicemails, not get us backed up as we have over the last couple of weeks, because you guys are crushing it on the voicemail line. But here's my biggest takeaway. Last year's road was tougher. This one just has more speed bumps. You go back to the 2020 season, you bring in a brand new quarterback where facilities aren't open. These guys are doing virtual meetings. They didn't have OTAs. They didn't have mini camps. They had an abbreviated training camp. They had no preseason. Tom Brady was learning the offense on the fly throughout the season. You had Gronk come in and join. He's trying to learn the offense. You have Antonio Brown come in halfway through the season. You sign Leonard Fournette right before the first game of the season, right after he's cut by the Jags. It was more difficult for these guys, especially not being able to do in-person stuff, and they're doing virtual meetings in the offseason. And then it was a wild, crazy year. This year, everybody's back. Everybody came back, and that was the big talk all offseason, right? David and I talked about it time and time again. During the offseason, all 22 starters from the Super Bowl are back. They figured out how to re-sign everyone. They brought back Lenny. They brought back Antonio Brown. They got Shaq Barrett locked up. They re-signed Levante David. You got Godwin on the franchise tag. Mike Evans is freeing up money. This is fantastic. The road this year has more speed bumps. One of the speed bumps is you're the defending champion. Everybody, absolutely everybody, is giving you their best game of the year. They are going to fight you harder than they fight any other team. They are going to scheme against you harder than they scheme against any other team. They are going to play you tougher than they play any other team. Another speed bump is the injuries. It's been all year long with this team, and it seemed like things were on the uptick, right? Started getting some of these guys back, finally had the trio of corners back together. You lose Carlton Davis early in the season. You lose Sean Murphy-Bunting in week 1. You lose Jamel Dean early in the season. You signed Richard Sherman to come in and help you with your cornerback depth. Then he gets injured, and you're out there playing with D. Delaney and Pierre Desir and Ross Cockrell. You lose, Chris Godwin. You lose Mike Evans. You lose Leonard Fournette. You lose Levante. You lost Devin White for a couple of games. You lost Vita Vea for some time. You've lost Antoine Winfield Jr. You've lost Antonio Brown and Mike Edwards to suspensions. But before he was suspended, you lost Antonio Brown to injury. It's been weekly with this team. Weekly, all season long. And that's a lot of speed bumps. Your car's doing this because it's just bump, 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 bump all the way down the road. The Buccaneers found a way to overcome a very difficult road last year, bringing in a veteran quarterback who's run the same system for the last 20 years. And yeah, he's the greatest to ever do it. But there was still a learning curve there. And you have to battle, and you have a month where you go 1-3. Then, because you went 1-3 in that month, and you go 0-2 against the New Orleans Saints, now you're a wild card team. You have to go to Washington. Then you have to go back to the Superdome. Now you got to go to Lambeau in January. And they overcame all of that. This time around, they're guaranteed at least one home playoff game. There's still a chance they end up with the 2 seed. If somehow the Packers get upset, then the road to SoFi runs through Raymond James. And that's the position the Buccaneers want to put themselves in. But you're doing it without all these players. How different could the season have looked if Gronk didn't get hurt? If Gronk is fully healthy in that Rams game, if Jamel Dean doesn't get hurt in that Rams game, if you don't lose Antonio Brown for the stretch that you lost him for, if you don't lose Devin White for a couple of weeks, if you don't lose Chris Godwin for the rest of the season, could that Saints game have been different if Chris Godwin didn't get hurt a minute and a half into the second quarter? The guy still finished with the most receiving yards on the team for that game. He was an absolute machine. The Saints defense was absolutely outstanding, but they didn't have an answer for Chris Godwin. All the Bucs had to do was get in the end zone one time. And all of a sudden, the game is completely different. So there's been a lot of bumps in the road for this 2021 Buccaneers team. But I said it yesterday with my lack of concern on the offensive side of the ball, trying to figure things out right now. You get playoff Lenny back. You have Ronald Jones, who looked really good against Carolina. He's got those fresh legs. You're getting Mike Evans back. You're getting Antoine Winfield Jr. back. You're going to get Shaq Barrett and Levante David back. You're going to get Jason Pierre-Paul back. And now all of a sudden, these guys have had a couple of weeks to rest and to heal and refocus. And you have an entire locker room of players now. Like 48 of the 53, 45 of the 53, whatever it is. They know once that first game starts in January, they understand the sacrifices and the difficult road ahead of them in order to be the last team standing. Every one of the key players on that roster knows what it takes to climb to the top of that mountain. They're not looking at Tom Brady anymore. They're not looking at Rob Gronkowski anymore. They're not looking at Jason Pierre-Paul anymore saying, how do we do this? You've done it before. Show me how. Now, Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, Devin White, Levante David, they're all saying, we've been here. We've done this. We know what it takes, and we got it. That's my big takeaway. Last year's road was a little tougher. This one just had more speed bumps. But this is a team, this is an organization that understands that 2 weeks from now, it's a brand new season, and they have the experience to know how to finish on top in that second season. With that, I am going to get out of here. Thank you all for making today's episode of Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or first watch of the day. I will be back tomorrow with Evan Klosky of 10 Tampa Bay. That's right. Evan is back from his vacation. Going to get him on here, and we are going to start previewing the game against the Jets. But Now you need to make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It is also free and available on all platforms. Send us your voicemails to 813-444-5841. Follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarko_Bucks, at DHarrison82, and at Bucks_Nation. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, be good to one another. And we thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.